Welcome to the Trader, a Traitors podcast. My name's Matthew. I'm a writer working in TV development, and I am regretfully this season a handy faithful. The Trader features deep dives into every episode of the multi-award-winning hit TV competition series, The Traitors, as well as interviews with contestants from the shows. This season of the podcast is dedicated to the Traitors Australia Season 2, which is why I am maintaining this accent for the entire introduction. I'll stop now. This is it. We've made it the finale of a, quite frankly, unbelievable season of The Traitors. A strange season, a shocking season, and a bloody fantastic season, that's what I say. This is such an epic deep dive we are about to embark on. So no TT news update for now. Instead, we should forge ahead and meet my returning guest co-host. Continuing the Trader trend, my guest for the final episode could only be David Bloomberg. David is a survivor and general reality TV expert, blogger and content creator, and is currently covering season 25 of Big Brother US, which you can find on the Rob Has a Podcast network and through David's social media. If you're a long-time listener of The Trader, then you will also be well acquainted with David on all three previous finale recap episodes for season 1 of UK, US, and Australian Traitors. David, how are you doing today?
Good. I'm happy to be back. This finale was definitely better than a leech in the crotch.
Absolutely. Welcome back. I'm able to use the exact same question that I asked you last time, so I don't need to change anything. My question is, how have you enjoyed the Australian season of The Traitors so far?
It's funny. I feel like you just asked me that not too long ago. We finished that just in time, didn't we?
We did.
It was good. It was. You stumped me. My natural reaction, as you heard, was to say it was good. But was it really good? There were entertaining parts, but mostly it's a good thing I didn't have things to throw at my TV when I was watching.
Yes.
I was talking to someone else and they said, how can you go on a podcast and talk about it? I would just be screaming.
Yeah. Well, I have done quite a lot of shouting this season.
Yes.
I can relate to that point. I've loved this season. I've absolutely loved it. And I'm sure we have so much to talk about today. I don't know too much about what you think of the finale itself because I wanted to just get your fresh, genuine take on it. So we didn't discuss it before we started recording. I have predictions about your opinions on certain things, so we'll see if that pans out. Before we get right into it, David, are you ready to play our podcast game, The Trader Traitor?
I am.
Excellent. Now, for listeners who may be joining us for the first time, I'm going to explain our game. The not-so-secret mission for David and I from here on in is to tell one lie to one another. The lie has to be a fabrication or a made-up fact, big or small, about the traitors or about ourselves or about anything. For example, David could at some point lie and tell me that he's been in touch with Roger personally and found out that they filmed 3 alternative endings to this season of The Traitors. However, David's lie couldn't be a fake opinion, so he couldn't pretend to hate the way the season ended when in fact his true feelings are that he loved the way the season ended. At the end of the episode, we each have to put our traitor hunting skills to the test and decide what we thought the other person's lie was. David, ready to go for it and lie to me again?
I am. And, the worst part is that, we were talking before we started recording, and I said 2 things that I could have gotten you to fall for as a lie and realized it afterwards. Like,
yes.
I gotta do a better job of this here.
Yeah,
but I do want to stop you because I was very surprised when you told me we were going to be recapping episode 9, because I thought the finale was after the season ended when they banished Annabelle in episode 5.
Yeah, it should have. I mean, a part of it died for me there, so it should have been the end.
Yes.
I thought you were going to say you were surprised it was episode 9 because you thought there would be more episodes than that, which I did as well. I thought there would be. At first, I thought there were 12 episodes, and then when I thought about how many contestants there were, I thought, oh, they have some. There are less contestants than last year, or fewer contestants. There are only 10 episodes, and then it ended up being 9, which we may end up talking about as we work our way through the episode.
I think they just wanted to put us out of our misery.
Yes, that might be the case. Without further ado, then, let's get into it. The final episode, episode 9 of the Traitors Australia Season 2. Let's go for it. To start, then, we have a recap of some of the big moments of the season. We have a bit of a contestant montage. We're reminded of some people, Ash, Elias, Angelica. These people feel like a lifetime ago. I've forgotten who some of them are. We see a collage of some of the missions they've done. We're reminded of the original 3 traitors, Sam, Ash, Blake. Of course, 2 of them are still with us. Ash was caught in episode 3 after Sam masterminded this sort of backstabbing against his own fellow traitor, followed by a faithful being banished at every single banishment since. The narrative that's being fed to us in this montage is very much about Sam. It's all about Sam running things. Sam's in control of the game. We're reminded that Camille was recruited not so long ago. And now we've reached our final 5. We are left with 2 faithful and 3 traitors. Our faithfuls being Sarah and Liam. Surely it's impossible for the faithful now. It's really difficult to imagine at the beginning of the episode how the faithful could possibly turn this around. We have a clip of Camille saying that she wants the 3 traitors to win. We've got a clip of Sam insisting that he's done all the work, so he deserves to win. I'm good. Well, let's actually stop at this point. I kind of think this is true. I think he kind of. I know Sam's so unlikable, and I want to hate him, but I kind of also think he probably does deserve to win. What do you think?
Well, see, this was interesting because I know you asked at the end of episode 7, you asked your guest who they want to win. And you both went back and forth a little. And I was thinking, I don't want any of these people to win. Which didn't seem likely, or even an option at the time. I mean, Sam's saying he's done all the work. He has, but he's done terrible work. The real people who have done all the work to advance the cause of the traitors are the faithful.
Yes, the bad faithful.
Yeah. And so, like Camille in that same, nearly that same series of clips you were talking about, was saying it was theoretically possible a faithful could get to the end, but not these faithful. The blind leading the blind. I mean, it was just so bad. And that's why I enjoyed, I think right after that, the recap of Sarah and Liam just being so utterly clueless over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And so, I don't feel like it was Sam doing the work. Yes, a lot of the season was told through Sam's ego and about Sam's ego. And each week, I kept waiting for him to get knocked down because that's just the reality TV trope. They show the ego and then they knock him down. And it kept going and going. And I'm like, when is this going to happen? Surely it has to happen at some point.
Yeah. And it didn't.
And here we are in the finale.
Yes, it's unbelievable. In this montage of clips as well, I felt like most of the focus was on Camille and Sam. So when I was, watching this, and I watched it less than 24 hours ago,
Mhm.
I thought at this point it's going to come down to Sam or Camille. I just felt that that was what was being presented to us, and in a way, it kind of is what ends up happening. But I absolutely didn't predict what does end up happening.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I had come in on another podcast predicting that Camille would win.
Yeah.
Because and I was all ready to talk about how, see, this is what you get for recruiting a traitor at such a late phase. And is it fair for her to win as a traitor and this and that? And as it turned out, only part of that is actually applicable, because I do think recruiting a traitor at that late stage was part of the problem, both for Sam and the show.
Yeah. After our recap segment, then we're straight into a mission. We're at the mission immediately. There's no breakfast. There's no chit chat. We have some slow mo red tracksuits down the stairs. It's almost funny, and I just watch this. These five people coming down the stairs, and again, I think, how do you not know Sam is a traitor? Like, come on, look around you. I mean, I know that only applies to two of them, but I think, Sarah, look who you're with. Come on. But we'll get there. And you're right, Camille. I think around about this point, Camille says it is possible the faithful could win, just not these faithful, and I did laugh at that.
Yeah. I mean, I think we can go back to, also again, when we were talking about Sam, episode 7, Liam was saying the traitors are doing a really good job. And I'm sitting here yelling at my TV going, no, you're just doing a really bad job.
Sam speaks a little bit here, and he claims that Camille is in his back pocket, and he says that's why he recruited her. It's just another classic example of Sam's ego, and I don't know how much of it to believe. I don't know. I still don't know how genuine is Sam completely playing a character? Is he just playing up to the cameras, or does he really believe everything he's saying? And I still don't know what the answer is.
I think it's both. I think he was playing up to the cameras. And I mean, it's hard to get inside his head, and I'm not sure I want to be there. But I do think he started doing certain moves that affected his game because he was playing up to the cameras. This whole thing about thinking that Camille is in his pocket, I do believe that he thought that.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, it was really stupid to recruit her.
Yeah.
And so the only reason it would ever make sense is if he really believed he had full control over her.
Sure.
So, yeah, I do think he thought that. But as with most of his harebrained schemes, he was wrong. It's just that she was better than the rest.
I bet, yeah.
Yeah.
Wouldn't be difficult. We move into one of the cars then, and they've put the three traitors together. So Sam, Blake, and Camille are all riding to the mission together. And Sam is saying all three of them can go to the end together. They can do this as a team. Already I'm thinking, no effing way. Like, surely they're not going to believe anything Sam is saying. Come on. Blake's worried a little bit, as is Sam, about Liam, because last night it seemed like Liam finally clicked and finally turned on Sam and Camille. He pointed to both of them. He said, I think you're a traitor, points at Sam, and I think you are, and he points at Camille.
And here's the other thing, by the way, about that. He had no reason to say that. He believed there was going to be a murder at Final Five, which people who have watched the show before know there is no murder at Final Five.
Yes.
And I think that's a symptom of the season overall, is that, other than Annabelle and a couple others, nobody had any clue what was going on in terms of the overall show structure.
Yeah. I don't know if you managed to listen to. It's only just gone online as we're recording, but my interview with Annabelle is online now,
Yes.
and it's one of the things that Annabelle said that she said she could count on one hand the number of other contestants who had also watched the show. She said most of them had watched a couple of episodes to figure out what it was.
Mm-hmm.
None of them had watched other versions of it or watched the first Australian season all the way to the end. So yeah, I
Yeah.
don't think they had a great understanding of what was really going on.
Which, I mean, let me just say how bad that is. I mean, that's just terrible. And I'll say that about any show you go on, whether it's Survivor, Big Brother, anything. Watch the show. I don't care if you binge watch it. You won't get the same understanding, but at least you'll have a clue how it's going on.
Yeah.
And I won't really say anything spoilery about the New Zealand season, which ran almost concurrently with this. But it was an interesting comparison because when you look at the New Zealand players, almost everyone had clearly done their research.
Yeah.
It seemed like they watched all the English language seasons and they knew how things were going to go and they knew the strategy and they knew the moves. And just seeing these two run up against each other was so interesting in this, divergence of gameplay.
Yeah. Funnily enough, I don't know this, but I would guess that Sam probably was one of the players who knew what was going on. He was so decisive that I got the impression he got how it worked and he understood how to get away with things and how to talk people out of things. So I wouldn't be surprised if Sam had watched a whole season.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah. Sam was annoyed that, of course, there was no murder last night. Maybe that does show. Maybe he didn't know what. Maybe he hadn't seen it before. I'm not sure. He kind of.
I think he was just annoyed, whether he had seen it or not. I think he was just annoyed he didn't get to knock someone out.
Yes. Yeah. He wanted to get rid of Liam as soon as Liam had mentioned him. He kind of mocks Roger a bit, which I'm not happy about. Anyway, at this point, before we keep talking about what happens in the mission, I thought I would stop here and just do a bit of theorizing about what could potentially happen in this episode. So, assuming there would be, and these are my notes that I took as I was watching it, right? Mm-hmm. So at this point, I stopped and I thought, right, I assume there's going to be a banishment followed by an end game, which is what ended up happening.
Right.
There were two main possibilities, I reckoned. Possibility one, they banish a traitor at the banishment. And then maybe the faithfuls believe there's only one left. And I thought they might then at the end game all vote and eliminate one or more traitors. And that's how the faithful might win. Or possibility two, they just banish another faithful. And the remaining one single faithful person is then screwed. And the traitors then can do whatever they want. They're probably just going to gang up on that one remaining faithful. Or there's the possibility that the remaining traitors gang up on one another. And they, at this point, I thought they would be allowed to do what they did in the UK one, which was, and the US one, I think, which was they decide when they want to stop voting. Mm-hmm. So I thought Roger would keep asking, do you want to vote again? Do you want to vote again? So I thought if that happens, the traitors could just keep going. They could just vote to keep voting someone out and whittle it down until there's two of them left. But it doesn't work out that way. They don't really allow them to keep voting. They have a banishment. They do an end game. It's done.
Yeah, I think that the difference is because it got down to all traitors. So there was no point in them all saying, yes, we want to keep voting.
Well, yeah, I guess. Yeah,
or not. And I suspect because they were gathered around a fire, I suspect he still did the thing of, do you want to keep voting? It was just cut because it was so obvious. Even he said there's obviously still a traitor.
Yeah.
But I thought going into the episode that Camille would work with someone, whether it was Blake, whether it was the faithful, and knock out Sam. or Blake, one of them, at least at that final five.
Yeah.
And then, that she would somehow then get them to knock out the other one, and she would be the sole traitor left. And she was, like I said earlier, I was all prepared to talk about how this is why you shouldn't recruit someone that late, etc. But I didn't realize. I mean, I knew Sarah was bad, and I'm sorry, Sarah. You seem like a very nice person. I want to play poker against you. I want to play anything for money against you. You are bad. You are so bad. I mean, she even said, I have not used so many brain cells in my life. What did you use them on? I mean, or was that a misquote? I did not lose so many brain cells in my life. I mean, yeah, she stuck around to be the final one because nobody saw her as a threat, because she never, ever, ever knew what was going on. And even at the very end, and I know we're jumping ahead a little bit here, but I did not foresee that the traitors would not be willing to work with her because they could not trust her.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that was a twist I didn't see coming. And that directly led to the outcome, because if Blake had felt like he could work with someone, if Camille felt like she could, I think that it would have been a different outcome.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I also predicted, I didn't think the first banishment would go the way the first banishment went. And at that same line from Sarah about using so many brain cells, I was also very confused when she said that, and I thought I had misheard it, because I thought I don't see much evidence of that. And Sarah's presumably a very clever person. She's a psychotherapist, so she's obviously intelligent. In defense of Sarah, all I can think of is she must have just worked herself in knots and become so carried away and confused that at some point, quite early on in the game, she had talked herself into utter confusion, and I just get the impression she was never thinking clearly, that she was just so baffled and confused and maybe anxious and nervous and uncomfortable that she just could never think straight, and there was no point in her being in the game anymore.
Yeah, I mean, and I really hate to extend anything past the game to real life, but her real life, she's supposed to help other people sort out their problems. And, in this game, she couldn't help anybody sort out anything. Now, in real life, presumably her clients, her patients are not, hopefully, lying to her and trying to mislead her. Yeah. So there is that. They actually want help. They actually are seeking her true advice. So, she just may not be used to dealing with dishonesty of this level.
Yeah, sure. That would make sense. And so, speaking of Sarah, back to the episode, we move from the traitor car to the faithful car. So we've got Sarah and Liam together, and Sarah says she suspects Sam and Camille, and it's she suspects Sam because of what Liam said last night. But we have seen Sarah do this throughout the season, that during the main part of the episode, we hear Sarah say, "Oh, I think Sam's a traitor." It just doesn't ever last. We get excited and we think, "Yes, Sarah, you figured it out finally." And then you just need to wait 10 minutes and the thought seems to disappear from her head.
I mean, in this case, who else was she going to say also? I mean, she was in the car with Liam. So there was literally, she's not going to say to Liam, "Oh, I think it's you."
True.
But yes, the entire rest of the season, that excuse doesn't exist. Yeah.
And at this point, I also thought what you mentioned a few minutes ago, that when I see Sarah and Liam talking about Sam, I thought, oh, if they bring this up in front of Camille or Blake, then it's going to encourage Camille or Blake to join forces with them and turn on Sam. But they just don't. So we get to the mission then. So Roger arrives at the mission in a van looking like he has just escaped from the Matrix. Very strange outfit. We are at this mansion. They're given a map and tools to find and steal some treasure. There is $50,000 available, which would take the grand prize to $212,000 if they find it all. I'm going to repeat what I said in episode 7 of the podcast, which was I just feel like there's no jeopardy here because I already assume they're going to win all of it or almost all of it. It doesn't enter my head that there's a possibility they're not going to win any silver here. So I don't really care about the mission. They have a 30-minute time limit. Roger tells them he is the getaway driver, and off they go. They find the first silver bars with zero apparent difficulty. They walk to a pond. There's some silver.
Don't forget the leeches. Don't forget the leeches.
Yeah, sorry, there's leeches.
Well, in her mind, there are leeches. I don't know that there are actual ones.
Yes, Sarah. I've just written it's boring.
Yes.
They find some silver. They find some more silver. They find some more silver. Sarah doesn't want to go in the water. We then kind of get these little flashbacks to important things that have happened throughout the season. So we have a bit of a focus on Sarah. She doesn't flash back. I don't think Sarah thinks back to anything that's happened. The editors flashback to her fiasco with Payden, which was sort of episode 1 and episode 2, followed by a montage of her just being confused in general. And that really annoying clip at the the banishment of Annabelle, when Sarah puts her hand up and just goes, I don't see any evidence. That was one of the scream at the TV moments. She admits that she's struggled and that she has had no idea what's going on for most of the game. Yes, Sarah. What my favorite clip here is the little clip they show from the mission where they had to climb up the hill with a backpack. So they just show this clip of Sarah crawling on the hill again. Of course, they've showed that. I want someone who's very clever at these things to edit that clip with the Kate Bush song "Running Up That Hill" just playing over the top, just ridiculously. That would make me laugh. What are your thoughts on this mission, David?
Well, part of the mission was digging through cow manure.
Yeah.
And, we already know that Liam and Sarah are really bad at separating silver from manure, metaphorically.
Yes, it's a nice metaphor.
Yeah. I do think it's funny that this was definitely lower budget for the finale than before.
Definitely.
In that regard, it showed the maybe they didn't have quite as much to spend this time, but they'll have next time. But yeah, it was also funny to see them like creeping around, like, oh, shh, don't splash too much in the puddle, or don't do this, or don't do that, as if the cops were really going to come or something. And, of course, it wasn't until the very end when they, move the silver bar that's actually inside the house that the alarm starts going off.
Yes. And even then, nothing actually happens except an alarm sounds, and then they jog quickly. Yes. No one is after them. Nothing bad is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, the 30-minute time limit was more important than the alarm going off.
Yeah, exactly. 30-minute time limit in inverted commas.
Yes.
The part of the mission is also they break into a shed with wire cutters. There's a bit of a focus on Liam here. He gets his little segment. He finally realizes, yes, Sam has been playing him all along, and he feels like he's been doing Sam's dirty work for him. And there's then a montage of Liam nodding along and going along with everything that Sam has ever said to him. It must feel quite weird as a contestant at this point, I think, that there are only 5 of you, and you're running around grabbing these silver bars to add to the prize fund. And you must be aware, especially as a faithful, you must be aware the whole time that A, you're with other people who are lying to you, and B, you're probably not going to win. So it must just feel quite strange to be gathering all this money, knowing this is probably a lost cause. I'm just finding silver bars for other people to take, or no one to take.
I don't know. Those two faithful have been pretty delusional the entire time. So,
maybe that's not crossed their mind.
Yeah, I mean, even Roger, fast forward a little bit when he gathers the 5 together, he says each of them has the opportunity to walk away with the prize. I'm like, no, they don't, Roger. Stop it.
They don't.
Stop it. You're not fooling anyone, except maybe those two.
Yeah. Blake has a bit of a recap moment too. So we see him talking about how being a traitor was great at the beginning. He said that when they got Ash out, it was fantastic. But then things between him and Sam went south. They turned on one another. And that seemed to begin at the banishment of Annabelle, because Annabelle revealed, well, Sam was talking about you, Blake, and Sam is preparing to target you very soon. The trust between them broke down. And that led to Blake then voting for Sam at the following banishment. And so we go back to the mission. I mean, it's funny because it seems when they show us that Blake segment, I felt like it was setting something up. I thought, oh, they're showing us this because they want us as a viewer to be reminded that Blake and Sam don't trust one another anymore. But that kind of then doesn't actually really come to anything. Mm-hmm. The end of the mission, they break into the house, like you said. They take the silver, an alarm goes off, nothing actually happens. They run to a van, they get in, they won the money, yawn. I actually felt like this was the most pointless mission of all. Just thought, what a disappointment for the finale. Before, we've had helicopters, we've had people jumping into lakes. Even in season 1, there wasn't much jeopardy, but the abseiled down a big giant waterfall, so at least it was sort of visually quite impressive, and some of the contestants were scared and really upset, and we thought maybe they're not going to do it because
Sarah was scared of those crotch leeches. So don't dismiss her real fears.
Okay, I'm sorry. Yeah, that's true.
And we had cow down.
That's true. Yeah, gripping stuff.
Yeah.
The final prize fund then is $208,000. So they must have missed 2 silver bars somewhere. I didn't even notice. I wasn't really paying that much attention.
Same.
So we move back to the hotel then. I'm scrolling up my notes. How many pages of notes do I have? I have 9 pages of notes. We're on page 3 now. So Sam's gearing up for the win. The traitors meet in the garden. Blake is talking like he naively thinks the 3 of them will take the prize home and it's all sorted. I'm thinking surely he doesn't really believe what he's saying. If he does, he's very naive. But I assume he's just sort of saving face in front of the others.
I think this whole segment was another pile of cow manure.
Yeah.
I mean, they were just literally BSing each other about, one convincing the other. And, the whole thing was, as much as you said the challenge was a waste of time, this whole segment was also a waste of time, because who in their right mind is going to believe a word that Sam says at this point?
Yeah. So, and we see it more than once over the next half hour or so.
Right.
These kind of fake discussions. At this point, I really wanted to believe that Blake was quietly plotting his revenge on all the shit that Sam's put him through, and he's just waiting to backstab him. But again, is it really going to go anywhere? Sam's plan is to go for Liam. The other traitors, I wrote in my notes here, the other traitors agree in inverted commas, because I thought they weren't really agreeing. but I was wrong.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. That goes back to what I said. I thought they would, get together and go after Sam, and that would be his downfall. But no.
Yeah. Mind the in all of my discussions with people about this season, when people send me messages on Instagram and say, "Oh, have you watched the latest episode?" The most common word I have used in responses to people is simply mind blowing for all sorts of reasons. Mind blowing, in terms of I'm so entertained, it's exciting, I'm really enjoying it, and usually mind blowing because it mind blowingly stupid of mind blowing stupidity over and over again. So Sam now, he also has decided that he wants to turn Sarah and Liam on one another. I don't really know why he wants to do this, because I sort of think, well, he's got his two traitors, his two fellow traitors have his back. That's already 3 against 2. I sort of think it doesn't really matter what Sarah and Liam do. It looks like, well, as far as Sam's concerned, the traitors are going to stick together and get Liam out. Why does he care about turning Sarah and Liam against one another? Or maybe Sam is actually smarter than I realize. And
I think in this one instance, Sam is right, because if we can see this guy, I know Sam has blinders on and, views everything from his own unique egocentric viewpoint. But if Camille and Blake were going to try anything, then it makes sense to turn the other two against each other. And maybe, we heard Blake talking about, again, how just bad Sarah is in terms of being able to trust her.
Yeah.
How unreliable she is. And indeed, she says, eventually, my head is telling me Liam is probably a traitor. And it's like, yeah, Sarah, your head's been wrong all game. So Great track record. Yeah, you. But if Liam had been able to convince Sarah, then only Camille would need to flip.
Yeah. I noticed that at this point in the episode, Sam, I've noticed this all the way through the season, but Sam is so gleeful, is the best word I can think of, gleeful in his interviews. And I mean, outside of Annabelle, he is the talk of the season. I think he's the main character who is creating the most ruckus on social media. It's his manner, his confidence. I'm surprised at your reaction to Sam. I thought you would be very, very pro Sam, but you've been more critical than I thought. It's
because I think let me try to read you here. I think that you believe that I would be pro Sam because he's playing the game. And I am always in favor of the strategic game players. But the thing is, he's playing the game poorly. He has been all season playing poorly. He has been making bad moves that should not have worked. He's been lucky that as bad as he has been, the faithful have been worse.
Yeah, I can see that. Or Sam realizes how bad the faithful are, and so he knows he can get away with what would normally be bad decisions. That's the way I see it, that he knows how useless they are. And so he kind of can... I think if it was a better group of faithful, Sam would have known to play it differently. Maybe not. I'm completely
I don't know. I mean, he, at least from the clips we saw at the very beginning, he was declaring himself the best traitor ever, like 2 episodes into the show or something. He was. And he couldn't have known how bad these faithfuls were yet. And so it's just, he's making very basic errors, but nobody is catching on to them. And so, and as we'll get to here, I think one of those errors is what comes back to haunt him.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
It's an error that he should not have made. And that's one reason I'm not high on him.
Yeah, and we definitely will have a lot to say about that.
Mm-hmm.
One more thing about Sam just for now is I am amazed Sam's very young, so he's in his early 20s, which to me is very young. But I am impressed that I think he's very attuned to what works on TV, and I think his plan is to be a TV star. He did a little Instagram video on his page where he talks now, a spoiler full video that he just put on Instagram saying, "Oh, and he sort of talks through the season, and he's like, "Oh, this happened, and then I did this, and here's why I did this." And he briefly says, "Oh, now what? I want to get into acting," and I'm not surprised by that. I think he knows what it is to be a good reality TV star. So I think he's smart enough to know that maybe people online are going to hate him and say horrible things about him, but he's quite aware that that's what's going to get him ahead.
Okay, so I'm going to ask you something here, because I think that was your lie. I'm gonna call out your lie early, because I understand now. I don't follow him on Instagram, but I understood that he was staying away from social media and, in fact, may have left the country for a while.
I promise that was not my lie.
Okay.
It's absolutely true. I've started. Sam is following the podcast page and interacting with lots of the posts, which is nice. So I follow Sam back.
Okay.
He is in another.
I don't know how he'll respond to this podcast.
Well, I think Sam doesn't care. He did a little video and he looks like he's in some tropical lovely place because although Australia's a tropical lovely place, but it looks like he's by a pool somewhere and he's in his shorts. And so I don't know where he is, but that is true. Sam has this little video on his page. Anyway, Sam then he goes to talk to Sarah. He's decided he wants to turn Sarah and Liam against one another. And he speaks to her and he implies that he's just followed Liam. He says it's Liam's done all the leading and I've just done whatever he wanted. At the last 3 banishments, in brackets, I've written as if. And he says that it's Liam who's doing all the masterminding, and now Sam's thinking, I've been so stupid. Maybe Liam's the traitor all along. And I think this is a bit that you mentioned already. Sarah admits that she's never even considered Liam as a traitor. But maybe she's just blind because she gets on with Liam so well. And I thought,
she was half right.
Surely, is she just acting in front of... She does not for a minute think that Liam's been smart enough to do all this, does she? But I think I was wrong again. Sam then goes and talks to Liam, tries to talk him round. And Liam finally realizes the truth. He realizes... Everybody who has targeted Sam at banishment rooms, like Annabelle, Luke, Gloria, Simone, has then instantly left the game one way or another, either by being banished or by being murdered. So Liam now realizes that is too much of a coincidence. And I just wondered at this point, correctly wondered, is it too late for Liam to realize this? Too little, too late. But now Liam is on the Sam hunt. So he goes off and talks to Camille and Blake. I know when I was, as I'm watching this episode, I thought if he could pull this off, it would be incredible. Yeah, it would be unbelievable. Imagine Liam talked around Camille and Blake and they got Sam out. I thought it would be great for Liam. It would be a great moment for the viewers. But as Liam talks to Camille and Blake, they just seem so ambivalent about it. Like they won't really, and that could just be in the edit. But we get the impression they don't really want to commit to anything and they just sort of act like they're still considering things and they don't really know what to think. Sam and Blake then have another talk. And this is one of these moments that you mentioned that it feels very uncomfortable to me because I don't think that neither of them are telling the truth. And they both know that the other person isn't telling the truth. And it's just this one big long pretend conversation. They're both pretending to the other, I'll take you to the end. But we know that it's all a big facade and they know it's a facade and we know it's a facade. Sam does this thing where he sort of plays the victim a little bit. And he says, well, Blake, you voted for me at that banishment room. I've never done that to you. How do I know I can trust you? How do I know you're not going to do that again? So I thought that was maybe clever for Sam to pretend that he was a bit of a victim here, and that Blake was the one that was going to have to prove his honor.
I mean, clever if there was an audience, but Blake knew how it really went down. It's kind of like if you're having a debate on social media, and by debate, I usually mean argument with someone who's not going to change their mind. And so it's one thing to say, this is why you're wrong, da, 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 da. But usually, not always, usually the person on the other end isn't going to change their mind.
Yeah.
Because they don't see it the same way. You're arguing for the others who might be watching and kind of might be on the fence. There's no one watching here. There's no reason to go through all this. Sam is not going to convince Blake that Sam is the aggrieved party here and that oh my gosh, you did these terrible things, because Blake knows what happened. And, maybe if Blake had been Sarah, he would have convinced, but not Blake.
But although I kind of disagree with it a little bit, because I think Blake does have a history of making terrible decisions as well in the game. So there have been several moments where Blake should have just turned on Sam and done everything in his power to get him out, and he just hasn't. So I don't really trust Blake's judgment that well. So at this moment, I did kind of think Blake might just be a fool again and buy into what Sam's saying. Like, I kind of wouldn't be surprised if Blake just went, oh, well, maybe I should feel bad, just because he never seems to stick to his convictions on Sam. Anyway.
I mean, maybe it's possible that helped convince him not to try and work with the Faithfuls. Maybe he was, leaning one way or the other. But it was never going to convince him that he had done Sam wrong.
Well, probably not. No. Yeah. We cut to Sarah and Liam talking. And again, I get the impression that it seems like they are both going to go for Sam in the banishment room. How wrong am I? And we go back to Blake, who realizes, and you've mentioned this a few times, he realizes what we all realize, that you cannot rely on Sarah for anything in this game. We've seen throughout the season, she constantly changes her vote as soon as they step into that banishment room, and her mind just implodes. You can't bet on her for anything. So here we go. We are ready for the banishment room. There's lots of shots of Liam at the beginning, and I think he looks so innocent, and I know that Liam has been terrible at this game, but I would actually love for him to win, because at least he can't help it. And he at least, I think, he's seen the light right at the end.
Mm-hmm.
At least, unlike Sarah, until her last moment in the game, hasn't got a clue. At least I think Liam's, at the end of episode 8, he finally figured out what was going on. So at least that redeems him a little bit, even though it's too late. So
but that's the same about every Faithful except for like Annabelle and Luke. They were the only two who held on to any information. They didn't, use it right away.
Yeah.
And they, tried to use it more strategically. It didn't work out, obviously. But whereas everyone else, each time, they finally saw the light and boom, Sam gets rid of them, or rather the other Faithful get rid of them. And because they accused Sam, and obviously Sam's faithful. So clear, so yeah, every Faithful keeps seeing the light, and that's their last episode.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, get a clue, please.
Yeah. And you've reminded me again of something that I am so desperate to ask whatever contestants I can speak to. Well, I asked Annabelle, and her answer was, I have no idea. I really want to ask them all, why were you all so charmed by Sam? Like, why did none of you ever... I know some of them did vote for him from time to time, I just am so curious to know, yeah, why didn't you all just turn on it? Why were you so blinded to Sam? Why were you so convinced he was a faithful? And I asked Annabelle, and she said, "I don't know. I didn't get the charm." She was just like, "I don't know what their problem was. It was so obvious to me he was a traitor." But I really would love to know what the others would tell me
Well,
about that.
so let me tell you something that Annabelle told me, because Annabelle, messaged me after she was out, and she had listened to, I think, our podcast here and possibly other podcasts I've done, and she said that I had shared a podcast a while ago and recommended it to prospective Traitors players, and it was about how reading body language to detect lies is BS.
Yeah.
And she said she listened, and it was really helpful. And therefore, because of that, she ignored certain things while other people got caught up in it. So other people were focusing on the little mannerisms, facial expressions, touching their neck, whatever else. And she was focusing on logic and evidence. And she said they would not stop going on about it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why, because Sam is so confident in himself that he didn't have a lot of those characteristics that are supposedly associated with someone who's lying, where some of the other people were not confident or were nervous, and therefore they may have had, and I've extended what she's told me to, what I've said, but yeah, it's just that I think that probably had something to do with it. They were focused on the wrong things. It doesn't matter if someone crosses their arms. It doesn't matter if someone touches their face. Those are all BS. And yes, I know some of these people are former military, former police. I'm sorry, what you're taught in those police courses are also mostly BS. You're not going to pick out a criminal because he touched his neck in a certain way. And so, there's a reason that a lot of these tells are not really tells.
Yeah.
And there's also a reason that, obviously this wasn't a polygraph, but there's a reason that polygraphs aren't admissible in court, because people get nervous. And, Sam might have been able to pass a polygraph. He's so confident in himself.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
And we even saw on a different show in the US called Claim to Fame, they have a polygraph. They don't call it a polygraph, at least in the second season. They call it a heart rate monitor or something. But in the season, you could see the players like, oh, her heart rate's going up, she's lying. And then the next person would come out, oh, their heart rate's going down, they're lying. And it's like, wait a minute, and it's the same sort of thing. You need to focus on, like she said, the evidence, not on all this extraneous BS.
Yeah, and your observation of Sam is something that I've noticed, and I agree with, that he physically presents himself so calmly. Well, with one or two exceptions. In Banishment Room, he doesn't fidget. He sits with his hands in front of him on the table like this and doesn't really move. He doesn't. He very slowly scans the room. He looks right at people when he's talking to them. He speaks fairly slowly, and very sort of even tempered.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't really shout. He doesn't speak erratically. He always seems so sort of prepared. So I guess that fools people into thinking that he's calm and cool and collected and honest. I guess the exception for me is when the Banish, it was episode 6. It would have been when Blake had voted for him, but it didn't matter. And still in the room, he kind of lost his temper to an extent and started immediately asking Blake, "Why did you just put my name down?" So I thought that was a bit of a giveaway that he was panicking, but no one else picked up on it, so it didn't matter.
Yeah, I think you're right, because one of those supposed tells is if you look away from someone or you don't want to meet their eye contact. He could lie to you looking you dead on in the eyes.
Yeah.
And we saw it in what I just described as this BS session where he was telling Blake and Camille, oh yeah, we'll go to the end. If you didn't know him, you might have believed he sounded sincere and he looked sincere, but we know him and we know he's not. And
Yeah.
you're also right. And I think we've talked about this in previous podcasts that, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you don't. If you don't defend yourself aggressively, then they're like, oh, well, look at them. If you do, then it's, oh, he doth protest too
Yeah,
much.
absolutely.
And he managed to keep that even keel. And, I'm kind of surprised they didn't pick up on him not defending himself more aggressively. But I think that he just earned so much latitude in the way he acted and even in the Ash boot early on, although they should have seen through that too.
Yeah. I think that's something else that Sam mentioned in his video on Instagram that I talked about. I don't think it's in this. I don't think it's in the episode. I'm sure it's in his Instagram video that he said he talks about that, and he says that one of his tactics was in banishment room. He never sort of spoke first. He said he didn't ever begin arguments. He said he would wait, and if people mentioned him, he would calmly defend himself. But he made it his sort of rule in his mind not to actively go for people because he thought it would make him look too aggressive and suspicious. So his tactic was to just sit very calmly and just observe what was happening around about him, and I guess it worked.
Yeah.
So Roger reminds us again of the rules of the game and how it's going to end and what's going to happen, just in case maybe Liam and Sarah still don't understand what the Traitors is. Roger opens up for discussion, and it's a little bit awkward at first. There's sort of lots of glances around. Nobody really knows who should speak up first. I think Blake invites Liam to speak, or Liam's the first one to kind of voice his opinions. And he says he's going for Sam. And he reiterates his theory that Annabelle, Luke, Simone, Gloria all thought Sam was a traitor, and they all then ended up being eliminated somehow. And Sam then turns this around by saying, well, Liam, actually, you were the one who pushed agendas on those players, so it was you who got them out, not me. And Camille joins in with that. She seems to go along with that theory, so it looks like she's sticking with Sam. She's backing him up.
Mm-hmm.
Blake does this thing next where he turns to Sarah and he asks Sarah what she's thinking. And I thought he's definitely, I thought he was doing this because he needed to know what she was about to do. He needed to know who she was going to vote for. He needed to know as much as he can know with Sarah. Is she going to vote for Sam, or is she going to vote for Liam? Because like you said before, and like we've said before, she's so unreliable. She could sway either way. And Sarah says, I'm fairly confident that Sam is a traitor, but then I think, hang on a minute. Have I been blindsided by Liam? My notes are, good God, Sarah. She is the most infuriating player to watch in Banishment ever. She starts by saying, I'm fairly confident that Sam is a traitor. And I just want to say, stop. Just stop there. Don't say any more. You've got it. Don't do any more. Don't now start looking at Liam. And she gets really upset. She's torn between her head and her heart, and I do think this game has probably messed with her mind, and she's just exhausted and doesn't know what to think. She says that her heart is telling her that Liam is a faithful, but her head is getting in the way. And actually, she says, "Liam, my head's telling me Liam's a traitor. I don't know why. I don't know why her head's telling her that Liam's a traitor. Other than what Sam just said, that." I guess Liam brought up Simone in the episode that she was banished. So maybe she thinks, oh yes, Liam did vote for those faithful who ended up getting banished. Yes, it was him that led that. Other than that, I don't know what evidence there is that Liam was the traitor. There's then a very quick cut, I thought, to Roger telling them, okay, it's voting time. And I thought it was quite clever to cut to that because it leaves us in complete suspense over what Sarah is about to do. I think Sarah probably said a lot more than this, but they want viewers to be in the dark about what's coming and about what the hell she's about to do and what Blake's going to do in turn, I thought. I I was pretty sure Sam and Camille are going to go for Liam. I wasn't sure what Blake was about to do. And what's that? And Sarah, obviously, we never know. Sarah could have written down the name of someone who's not even in the game anymore, and I wouldn't have been surprised.
She might have written down her own name. Now you've got me convinced that I'm the traitor. I didn't realize it all this time.
Is it me?
Yeah.
Or just vote for herself because she just wants out. She's just like, get me out. This is too much for me. Roger begins the vote with Liam. So he says, Liam, we're coming to you first. And I already thought at this moment, oh, this is bad news. If we're starting with Liam, I was kind of already trying to do the maths and think, right, they engineered the vote reveals in a way that's exciting and finishes with someone that'll leave us in suspense. So although I calculated it wrong, I thought, oh, we've started with Liam. That means we're going to end with Sam because Sam is sitting next to him at the table if we're going clockwise. But they don't do that. And I'll get there, but we actually reveal the votes in a really weird order. So Liam votes first and he votes for Sam, which is not a surprise. And Camille votes and she votes for Liam, which is also not really a surprise anymore. And then Roger jumps across the table to Sam. And I don't know why we're not revealing the votes in sort of clockwise order. Sam votes for Liam, not a surprise. And Roger tells us, of course, if there's one more vote for Liam, he's gone. Then we move back across the table to Blake. And Blake, Blake, maybe Blake votes for Liam. And we cut to Sam basically just grinning. And I think this is just brutal. This is brutal viewing because I know Liam's been a terrible player, but I felt awful for him. This is just horrible. How can we have an entire season of the Traitors where they didn't banish more than one traitor? It's unbelievable that they've done it again. And then we cut to Sarah, and Sarah... I'm not going to read what I wrote here because it's full of swear words and it's really horrible, but Sarah votes for Liam. So when I was shocked that Blake voted, I was surprised a little bit that Blake voted for Liam, but then maybe he read the room and he knew what Sarah was going to do. So actually, it was pretty easy for him to just vote for Liam. So Liam is banished almost unanimously, apart from his own vote for Sam. So he stands up. He says, I love every single one of you, except you now, Sarah, because you double-crossed me. Ouch. I thought, why aren't you saying that to Sam? Sam's been double-crossing you the whole game and you know it. So that was pretty salty, as Sam says a little bit later, I think. And Liam, as he tells them that he's a faithful. He calls out Sam and Camille as he leaves. He's like, they're the traitors. And Sam is doing, unless this is again very silly editing, Sam is doing the worst job ever at hiding this gigantic smile on his face. I feel like I was quite gutted at this point. I just thought, what's the point in even watching the rest of this episode? Like, I know what's going to happen now. Yeah. And it's...
Now, I do want to say you missed part of Liam's quote. When he left, he said, I am a faithful and a dumb one.
He did. Well, at least he acknowledged it in the end.
Yeah.
So, God love him. At this point, again, I'm writing my notes in real time, and I thought, what a strange end to the season. Little did I know what was coming.
Yeah.
I thought, how strange, and I thought this is really similar to season 1 in that we reach a certain point in the episode. So at this point, there were 24 minutes left of the episode, and already we know, well, a faithful can't win.
I mean, I knew that coming into the... I actually knew that in like episode 8, at least, you know.
Yes. So. At least now it was statistically impossible. But it made me think back to season 1, the finale. If you've not seen Traitors Australia season 1, stop listening right now. But halfway through that finale episode, it was also completely clear. Oh, a faithful can't win it now. It was still exciting to watch because I wanted to know what was going to happen with the Traitors. But we have the same thing again. it's completely and totally crystal clear. This is going to be a game where faithfuls can't win. Um, so, but I was also glad because I thought, well, the only faithful left, Sarah, she doesn't deserve to win.
Right.
She's
Right.
played appallingly. So I kind of not really mad that faithfuls aren't going to win now. I don't care. Then we move on, and at this point, Rog, it's kind of a funny structuring of things, I thought, because at this point, Roger describes the end game, I suppose. He describes the traitor's dilemma. This is sort of a new element to the game. In the English-speaking versions, we haven't actually seen this play out, although it could have played out in season 1 of Traitors Australia.
Right. I actually asked you about it, I believe, because he had said if there are 2 traitors left, it will come down to a game of share or steal or something like that. I said, do you know what he's talking about? And so we went through this.
Yeah.
I had not visualized it as a possible 3 person version.
Yeah. And even when Roger had said that in season 1, it then just didn't come to fruition.
Right.
So we didn't find out how it would work. I sent a message to Kate from season 1 on Instagram last night, or probably the early hours of this morning. And I asked her, were you told in season 1 that this is how it would end if there were only traitors left? And she said, yeah, we were told that it would be a share or steal game, but I never got to experience it. So yeah, Roger explains what is Traitor's Dilemma. I felt a bit strange at this point because I sort of didn't know until this point that this is how it was going to play out. So I've sort of felt a little bit cheated. I thought, oh, we've suddenly got this new element of the game, and I didn't really know it was coming. And I was a bit annoyed about it almost. Then again, I thought, well, we know Sarah's not going to win, so the finale's not really about that anymore. So I suppose we do need something else to look forward to now. So I guess it does make sense in terms of building us up to something. But what I'm confused about is why Roger explains it at this moment, because Sarah's still here.
Yes. I was confused too. As I was watching, I'm like, wait, Sarah's still here. Why are you explaining? Maybe he was trying to build up. The only thing I could think of is they were trying to build up some suspense that, like, you know, Blake and Camille might join with Sarah to vote out Sam before it gets to the 3-way version of the game. But, you know, we already had Blake repeatedly saying she's so unreliable. She's so unreliable.
Yeah.
And so it was at this point, I just wanted it to go quicker. You know, like, okay, let's go. Let's just, we'll banish her and be done. And now we can move on.
Yeah. Maybe Roger explains at this point because Sarah may as well not be there. So it's sort of like, oh yeah, we forgot about her. It doesn't really matter if she's here or not. She's not going to affect the game. But yeah, I did wonder, oh, what's going to happen to Sarah before we get here? So we have the splitter steal game, this sharer steal game described. If one remaining traitor of 3 votes steal, they will steal all the money for themselves. If 2 traitors vote steal, they'll share the prize between them. And if all 3 traitors vote steal, they all lose. And at this point, I even made a little note saying, ideal for producers. No prize money needed.
So I have a lot to say. Can we fast forward through Sarah? Can we just, okay, she's gone. Do you have a lot of notes for her? I don't mean to be the pushy guest, but, you know, I mean.
What do I have on Sarah? Have I even written anything about Sarah?
The only thing I have is that she said she walked away with her head held high. And my comment to that was, why?
Yeah, I just have lots of notes about. I've got a little bit of notes on the statistics of the Sharer Steel game, and then I've just written some things about what the players say at this moment in their sort of interviews.
Yeah, and that's why I wanted to fast forward past Sarah, because she, as you said, she's meaningless at this point. And I mean, in many ways through the whole season. But Uh, yeah, I have, I didn't go to the level of statistics, but just the thought experiment, and I think I may have said this before. Sam should have tried to banish Camille during this time. Instead of turning the two faithful against each other, he should have turned them against Camille. And this, I think, is where his ego finally caught up to him.
Yeah, because he thought that his fellow traitors would do whatever he wanted.
Right. Or at least Camille. He at least thought he was getting half the money.
Yeah, yeah.
That she was in his pocket. And this goes back to whatever episode it was, 6, I think, at the end of 6 that he recruited her?
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah. And it's just, you never should have done that. There was no reason. I am against it for 2 reasons. One, the game should not have set it up so that you have so many traitors backloaded at the end like that. Yeah. And then, but even beyond that, he should not have done it. So take production out of it. This seems like one of those things he did for fun, which was strategically bad. And I think it cost him $100,000.
Well, it does, yeah. His reason for recruiting Camille, though, was kind of out of fear. He recruited her because she had cottoned on to him. So she had realized that he was a traitor, and he was just worried that she was then going to turn everyone against him and get him out. So
murder
her. Well, yeah. He should have just murdered her. I guess he thought that he'd already pulled that trick with Luke, like murder the obvious person.
Yeah. And nobody caught on. He keeps pulling the rabbit out of the hat, showing the audience how he does it, and then pulling the rabbit out of the hat. And they all go, ooh, magic.
Yeah, I guess he thought he wasn't going to get away with it twice, but he probably would have. So, I mean, he shouldn't have recruited Camille. Absolutely. I just had sort of notes about things that they say at this point. Like Sam says he deserves all the money, so he's going to steal. Obviously, he says he wants to convince the other 2 traitors that he'll share. I've written here, if they believe him, they are idiots. And Sam does deserve the money. Sam and Blake have another awkward chat where they both pretend that they believe one another, but obviously they both know that the other one is lying. Blake at least admits to Sam's face that he's kind of worried about what's going to happen. They are concerned about Camille because she's not an OG traitor.
Mm-hmm.
I thought Blake seemed to suggest that they get rid of Camille before they even reach the traitor's dilemma. Maybe I read that wrongly. Sam,
I mean, they should have. They should have banished her. You know, and that was their only chance. And I know Sarah was unreliable. We all know this, but she was also somewhat guidable.
Yeah.
And so if you could convince her to turn on Liam, you could have convinced her to turn on Camille.
That's true.
And from the opposite side, Camille should have tried to use her to turn on Sam.
Yeah, she should have. It's the thing that I'm most surprised about. I don't know why Camille went along with Sam all the way into the end. I don't know why she didn't act sooner, but that's probably a big question that we'll get to at the end of the game. Sam even, you've pointed this out, that Sam says here, when he's talking to Blake, and Blake says, I'm a bit worried about Camille, should we get rid of her? And Sam says that he has he says there's no suggestion that Camille is greedy and that he's got no reason to worry about her stealing. So yeah, Sam's hubris does completely get in the way here. We see Sam talking to Camille. Again, he's convinced that she'll do whatever he wants. And my note to myself here is, Camille, please don't be that person. Sam tells Camille Blake's worried about her. Camille insists, I'm a sharer. But then we do cut to one of her confessionals, her interviews, and she acknowledges that no one trusts anyone. But at the same time, I can't read Camille here, because on one hand she says no one can trust anyone in this game, but then she keeps insisting that she wants nothing more than the three of them to get to the end together. So I can't read what Camille is actually thinking. Like, I
Which
don't
I
know
think
if she
was, I think that was the editor's point. Yeah,
Well,
I think they wanted to keep a little mystery, but like I said, and you said if they believed Sam at this point, they were idiots, and he did deserve it.
Yeah.
There are a few people in reality TV history who could say, I am going to lie, except I'm never going to lie to you. I'm going to lie to everyone else, but not to you.
Yeah.
And they would say that to every person, and they would get them to believe that. And those were truly great reality TV players. Sam was not that person. He believed that he was that person. He said it early. I'm the greatest traitor ever. And he probably thinks he could go on US Big Brother or Survivor or all these different games and do it there too. He can't. He believes that he has convinced all these people, but he even knew that he had that kerfuffle with Blake earlier.
Yeah. Yeah.
But, the thing is, if Camille had not been there, could he have convinced Blake? Maybe. I do think Blake is a little too pure, to be a traitor and be on this game.
Yeah.
That he might have fallen for it. But when you throw in the wild card of Camille, everybody had to steal. There was no choice in the matter. You have to be convinced in a three-way race. You have to be convinced that the other two will both share. If you have the slightest doubt, and I know you did statistics, so you can tell me if I'm a little off here, but you need to steal. It doesn't matter if everyone steals, because you get the same amount of money. If you share and they steal, you get $0. If you steal and they steal, you get $0. You have to steal on the hope that one of them will be dumb enough to share.
Yeah. When I say I have statistics, I was exaggerating quite a bit. I just meant I've written notes on exactly what you've just said, that surely as a traitor, you would just vote steal. If you, just numerically, you just have a better chance of getting something. If you vote share, it's like what you said. That means you are completely relying on two other people doing the exact same thing as you. And there is no way in this game, there is absolutely no way Sam's going to do that. So I just think if you're Camille or Blake, you have to write steal. That is your only shot at getting something. So if you're Camille, you hope maybe Blake will be an idiot and write share. And if you're Blake, you're praying that Camille's going to write share. You know what Sam's going to do. There's no question about that.
And that's why they both really needed to get Sam out earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's also why Sam really needed to get Camille out earlier.
Completely. Yeah.
And neither of them did it. And so I just, we skipped over the part where Roger, and this is partially me because I was just pushing along here. Roger said, for the first time in the history of the game worldwide, 3 traitors have made it to the end. So this was breaking new ground all over the place. Again, part of it is because production allowed them to recruit so late. But part of it is also because of the people that they cast. But yeah, you get all these people, all 3 of them stealing. And well, before we get into the reactions afterwards, I may have jumped ahead of you again here. So I don't know if you have things to say before we get to the reactions of
what happens at the very end. Oh yeah, I've got some stuff before, and actually I did have a whole section on Sarah. Unbelievably, I wrote. I skipped. I didn't realize I'd written stuff down, but it doesn't.
That's Sarah for you. You've even forgotten that you took notes on her.
Yeah. My final note on Sam in this section is simply, I cannot fathom being that confident about anything. I'm actually in awe of his confidence. He's still talking about being the sheriff and how he's got to get paid. It's again mind blowing. His bravado is mind blowing.
Yeah, I mean, he was, and see, this is why I say it wasn't all for the show, because he was truly so egotistical that he believed he could convince the other 2 traitors to share the money after he had been so untrustworthy the entire time. And then he throws around the word integrity as if anyone is going to listen to that from him.
Yes. And I know how much you are a fan of people trying to play the traitors with integrity.
Or any game. I have a shirt that has the words honesty, integrity, loyalty on the front. And then on the back, it says scheme and plot. Because you can pretend to be those things in the front, but you got to scheme and plot behind their backs.
Yes.
He was scheming and plotting in front of everybody.
Yeah. So for the end game then, we have these ultra dramatic shots of them coming down the stairs towards the big fire pit. Sam even says this is epic. They're all dressed in their fanciest outfits. Roger greets them at the fire pit. They stand in place. It's sort of very, very produced. I didn't know what to feel at this point. I was just watching it kind of numbly. Partly because I knew it was about to happen. I knew Sarah was going to get banished, and we almost didn't even need to watch it. We cut straight to it. Therefore, there's not really any preamble. There's no discussion. It's so obvious what's about to happen. They just want to get it over with. So they. Yeah,
that's why I just pushed ahead. I was like, I want to get it over with too. You know.
And like you said, there's no point in Roger even asking them, do you want to continue voting? Of course they're going to. They know there are traitors left. They've only got one out the whole season. I wonder if the producers had any idea that this scenario would happen, that they would end up with one traitor banished the whole season. And I wonder what it might make them do going forward if they go forward. And again, we'll probably talk about that later, if there's going to be a season 3 or not. If there is going to be a season 3, I imagine they're going to have to really rethink how they, well, maybe A, how they cast, but B, how they help the faithful more. Like, they can't have another season of this, surely. Anyway, the votes come in. Sarah finally votes for Sam. Too late, Sarah. Followed by Camille voting for Sarah. We cut to Sam again, and so we don't really go in order. Sam votes for Sarah. Is he even pretending to mean these votes anymore? He might as well have written on his slate, "I'm a traitor, and I know you, and I know you're a faithful." Haha, knew it all. He could have written anything on that slate. Blake, there's an intensely very dramatic pause, and I actually will admit, for a moment, because of the editing, because of the dramatic pause in Blake, I did think, is he going to vote for Sam? And we're going to have some sort of tiebreak. But he doesn't. He just votes for Sarah. Last chance to get Sam gone. Sarah leaves. Off she goes. Goodbye, Sarah.
Well, the thing that I think was that I did push past that I just remembered is they had to rub it in her face.
Oh, yes. Roger says, like, let's reveal.
Before you leave, let everybody tell you what they are. Yeah. And it's like traitor, traitor, traitor. You know, it's just like, this is how bad you are. We're rubbing it in your face.
Yeah. I mean, as soon as he says, before you leave, let's reveal the identity, it's very clear at that point, he could only be saying that if they were all traitors. If there were any faithful left, he couldn't do that yet. Yeah. So he's basically telling Sarah without telling her, although Sarah probably doesn't even pick up on that. Sam says he's an OG traitor. He's been one from the beginning. Mm-hmm. Blake says the same. Sarah just looks like she wants the ground to swallow her up. Sam is loving every moment of it. I thought, Sam, you could have at least looked a little bit humble or apologetic here. He's loving every moment of it. No, I don't think he can. And Camille simply says, "I'm a traitor," and then Sarah, off she goes. She says that you mentioned this earlier. She says in her interview that she played the game to the best of her ability. I'll say no more on that.
Yeah. I'm sorry to hear that.
Yes. Roger then tells the traitors that this is the first time in the show worldwide that 3 traitors have made it to the end, which is unreal. And I wrote, again, I was so naive. I wrote here, there is no way Sam is well, no, this is my genuine note that I wrote. It strikes me that there's no way Sam is leaving without money. Unless all 3 of them vote steal, surely not. So I didn't think that was going to happen. Roger explains the traitor's dilemma again. Here's how it works. And again, just based on stats, surely you would just write steal. That's
Right.
you're not going to write share, especially not with Sam around. They have a bit of a discussion. Camille does this really funny thing where she puts on her glasses for the first time.
Yeah.
And I,
As if to get a better look at them,
yeah.
like
And I wondered why is she doing that. I thought it was maybe a kind of psychological trick to appear honest and sincere. Like I'm putting on my glasses now. I'm getting real with you guys, and maybe that was her plan, and maybe actually it worked. And Camille says, "Yeah, this was the plan. We talked about integrity at the end. Ha ha ha." Sam does this. Sam does this really interesting. I know we talked about body language, and we talked about fake clues that someone's lying. However, I did notice I noticed Sam doing something here that maybe is quite telling. Maybe it's not. Maybe it's a red herring. Sam does this thing where he says, "Yep, 100%, 100%." But as he's speaking, he shakes his head from side to side. And I've heard these psychologists and people saying that that's a thing that people do. They shake their head when they're trying to say something positive, and that's a sign that there's something going on. And Camille says, "We talked about sharing," and Sam does it again. He shakes his head and he goes, "That's it." He should be nodding, but he's shaking his head the other way, I'm 100% sure Sam is going to steal. Of course, he's going to steal.
right.
I didn't know what Blake was going to do, and I didn't know what Camille was going to do. So I really was in the dark. I felt so much excitement at this moment. I thought that maybe Camille was looking at Sam and understanding that he was lying, but I was so I didn't know if I was just projecting. I had really didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So it's time to vote. I wondered if again, there used to be I think we talked about this before, there used to be a quiz show in the UK called Golden Balls, and Golden Balls ended with a split or steal game, but it was always just two players. And the way that game ended is they both revealed their split or steal thing at the exact same moment. It was like a 3-2-1 reveal. So I wondered if that's what would happen here, but it's not. They're going to do it one by one. Roger says it's the moment of truth. And then he says, "I guess there's a first time for everything." Sam goes first. Obvs. He writes steal. And we get some reaction shots of Camille, who seems to look shocked, but maybe we're seeing this out of context. Maybe she's acting.
As soon as I saw that, I'm like, yeah, she's not shocked. Let's be real.
Yeah. It's Blake's turn next. And he has written steal too. And I thought, well, okay, of course. He wasn't an idiot. He knows what Sam was going to do. So of course he's going to write steal as well. Right. Maybe it's not a big surprise. And then it's time for Camille. It's all down to her. Roger says, "Camille, please reveal your choice." Did you notice something flying into Roger, by the way?
No.
Something, I know I'm breaking the tension at this moment, but something flies into Roger. I'm not kidding. It's like, it's either a bird or a bat or a giant moth. I put it back to see if I was just imagining it, if it was in the background. Something flies into Roger's arm. It's really weird. Worst moment ever for it to happen. I think it's like a big, I don't know, it's a bird or something hits him. Anyway, Camille, please reveal your choice. And Camille has a little speech. It's amazing. She says, "The most fun I had was when you guys recruited me. I've had a ball. You were the best players. And when you recruited me, I knew then your plan was to take me right here." And this is the moment where I thought, oh, she's up to something. She's building us somewhere. This is going to take a turn. She continues. She says, "I knew you wanted me because I was a sharer." And then she says, "But if I wasn't going to win, then none of us are going to win."
Yes.
And she revealed her slate, and she has written steal as well. I screamed. I literally screamed. I was squealing. I couldn't believe it. Again, mind-blowing TV moment. And I was like leaping around the room. I thought, this is the best. This is the best TV show ever. This is why I spend these hours on this podcast. It consumes my life, but it's so worth it for moments like this. Blake looks like he wants to die.
Yeah.
I think for the first time in 9 episodes, we actually see a genuine emotion from Sam. He looks like he wants to cry. And I've written sweet, sweet justice. Although we'll discuss that.
Yeah.
And yeah, Camille obviously did know exactly what Sam and Blake were going to do. She knew where this was going all along, actually. So I thought maybe she might think Blake would share, but no, she knew what was coming.
But even if she did think Blake was going to share, she still had to steal.
Well, yeah. So she could get
because
something.
Sam was still in the picture. As long as Sam is in the picture, you have to steal.
Yeah, absolutely. Roger says you were traitors to the bitter end. Unfortunately, it was also your downfall, and I think that just sums up. It sums it up, or it sums up Sam perfectly. And then Sam starts to sort of talk.
Why?
Yeah, it's unreal. He says we were,
or to you it would be whinge, wouldn't it?
Whinge, yeah, he has a whinge. Is that like a really British word?
Oh yeah, we say wine.
Okay. He says we worked bloody hard the whole game. We worked bloody hard the whole game to try and stay here, and I think we did deserve to have that silver. And then he's like laughing in disbelief. He says, "I can't believe that just happened," and he's starting to get like annoyed with Camille, and he's saying, and it's just so ridiculous and sort of hypocritical, and yes, very much a tantrum. And he's even though he's lost the game, so there's no point in him saying anything at this point. Even though he's lost, he decided he was trying to kind of attack Camille, and he's saying, "I thought you'd be loyal." And she comes back at him and says, "I've seen you lying to everyone throughout the game, and therefore I know what you look like when you lie. So I knew that when you were talking to me, you were doing it to me too." She says, "I've figured you out now. You're a downfall."
Okay, I am going to tell you, there is a tell when Sam is lying. I know I just went over all the bodies. There is a tell when Sam is lying.
Is it
ready?
When his mouth moves?
Yes, that's it.
Yeah.
You saw it too. That's amazing.
When Sam's lips move, you can't trust him. We cut to Blake. Blake is literally crying at this point.
I felt so bad for Blake.
I did feel bad for him as well, because I feel like the moment he was picked as a traitor alongside Sam, he was screwed. He was kind of screwed from the beginning. Well, unless he did have opportunities to get Sam out. So I have written that as well. He should have worked harder earlier to get Sam out, and he didn't. But I can also see that being alongside Sam must be so difficult, because Sam is so forceful, and kind of felt like he was bullying Blake sometimes. And I know Blake's an adult and he can stand up for himself, but it would be really tough.
No, you're right. I felt that too. Just similar to the way I felt that Sam's whining at the very end started as pretty funny, but then it just kept going and getting worse. And it was idiotic. It was like, no, why would you say all these things? No, if I were Camille, I would have been like, screw you. Exactly. Why would I hand over the money to you? And he was, to my eyes, see, this is why I said he might not be happy in listening to this podcast. He was such a baby. I'm sorry, but he was acting so entitled. He reminded me of the U.S. reunion, the people who didn't win on the U.S. reunion. It was boo-hooing because someone else dared to play the game. And in his case, it was even worse, because the people in the U.S., they never played the game, so they couldn't understand the concept of someone playing the game. He played the game, and he had this egotistical, bombastic preening all season long. And then for it to just crack at the end, and you see that behind it all, he's just crying about it.
Yeah. And I, in a previous episode, compared Sam to, and Sam is young anyway, but he reminds me of lots of teenage boys I have taught as a teacher who are fantastic at lying, uh, but temperamental and yeah, I guess entitled.
Yeah.
Even when Roger leaves, so Roger walks off the set and Sam keeps going. He tells Camille, he says, if I was a recruit, I would have recognized that I hadn't done as much work as the OG traitors, and I would have just shared. And I've written absolute bullshit.
Yeah, utter bullshit. I mean, I didn't know if you wanted to avoid that word for your ratings here, but yes, that was total bullshit. There is no way. How could you even say that?
Yeah.
It's kind of like I said, some of the people on the U.S. Finale were like, well, I would have shared the money if I were the traitor. Oh, baloney.
Yeah, no.
You would not have.
Yeah.
And
why?
You shouldn't.
Exactly.
You know.
Yeah, I've written, why would anyone do this? Why would you give up tens of thousands of dollars because you think you owe it to other people who were picked a traitor before you? So, and he keeps going on and he's saying it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And I have written he's delusional.
Yes.
And then you know it's funny because since I have so many different feelings and thoughts about the show, and actually I watched it last night. I went to bed and I couldn't stop thinking about it, and I kind of kept changing my mind at different points. It's really strange. So as I was watching it, I thought Sam is being unreal. This is wild. But then I kind of started playing devil's advocate with myself, and I'll come back to that. I'll present you with a scenario in which maybe Sam has some sort of point, but I'll come back to it.
Well, I want to say, it's funny that you said it was going through your head because I literally had some sort of nightmares about the Traitors last night. I don't all I remember it was about the Traitors, and it was definitely a nightmare. I don't remember much else about that. So so I'm glad I'm not the only one who had it on the brain overnight. But yeah, it was, this whole season has not been about Sam being good at the game, but about Sam being thinking he was good at the game. He's not good at the game overall, and I talked about that earlier. But the faithful were worse.
Yeah.
But it was like someone playing poker against 10-year-olds and winning and then thinking I'm the World Series of Poker main event champion. It's like, no, you're not. And you shouldn't therefore automatically win. The other thing I want to point out, and this is something that I think sometimes gets forgotten in these discussions, especially by the Traitors. He's like, we worked so hard. Well, Camille was a faithful, but she was still playing the game.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, was she playing the game as well as Annabelle was? No. Up to the point that Annabelle got banished, obviously. But she was playing the game. She was playing it differently. And part of it's obviously a different game to play, but there is a definite strategy as a faithful. And one of the strategies as a faithful is to not be threatening, to not do something that will either get you banished or murdered, and to possibly get you recruited late in the game, because I think that's the best spot. I think being recruited late in the game is absolutely the best spot. And if you can be the type of faithful who has that happen, then you're, I was going to say golden, but I guess silver. Or, you could be if you then go from there. So she was, it's insulting to her to say we were playing from the beginning. She was playing from the beginning too. She was playing a different game. She might not have even, well, I'd say not play it as well, but I just went over how he wasn't playing that well. So, they were pretty much on equal footing. And so, it's, like I said, it's insulting to say you weren't playing the game.
Yeah.
She was. And, now, do I think that she failed at a key point, just like Sam and Blake? They all failed at the same key point. They all should have used those last two faithful to vote out someone else.
Yeah.
None of them did. And maybe they tried, but we didn't see it if they did. They should have done it. And then if Sam is gone, if Camille and Blake succeed in getting rid of Sam, I think they might both share.
Yeah.
Because Blake wanted that money so badly.
Yeah. Or they should have. You said that they should have used the last two faithful to get Sam out, or done it 2 episodes ago. I think that as soon as, maybe this is really risky, but I think as soon as Camille was recruited, she should have instantly turned on Sam, because she had very vocally been accusing Sam at that point. So she had said to everybody, I think it's Sam, and she'd voted for him. So it would have been very much in line with her character to continue to go for him, and that wouldn't have raised suspicion from anyone. So I think she could have talked Blake and immediately said, Blake, I'm a traitor too now. Let's just get him out, and it'll be you and me. And they could have then gone to the end together.
Yeah, I think it's a little more difficult. She's just been hit with this. Suddenly she's a traitor. Now what do I do? I think that's a little more difficult to instantly, turn that on. But after at least, one cycle had gone through, looking ahead to how it's going to end, it's like, now I need to do something.
Do it now. Yeah.
And they had the opportunity, and they just didn't. Like I said, all of them are responsible for getting $0. The difference is, for Sam, it was a huge downfall. For Camille, it was kind of a win. Even though she didn't actually win anything, it was kind of a win to not let them win anything. Yeah. And, another person I know had said to me, it's surprising that, like, social media is on Camille's side. Like, in many of these cases, social media will turn against someone like that, quite frankly, especially if it's a woman.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And in this case, social media seems to be on her side.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's just because we have seen the ego of Sam through the whole thing, and everybody was rooting for his downfall. It took all season long, but he got his downfall. And so nobody cares that Camille didn't get any money either, because she was never getting any money.
Yeah. The final few moments of the episode then are a little bit of Sam still arguing, and then some voiceover from Roger. Sam goes on and he says, "You should have just let us have it."
Yeah.
Camille says, "It's just a game." And then Sam says, "Yeah, that's what a rich person says," which I thought was very interesting, because I realized at that moment, did Camille ever tell the others about this sort of backstory that she worked with the police? If she did, we didn't see her tell. That sort of came to nothing.
I don't think she did.
And I wondered why Sam said that to her. Like, is he just assuming that she's wealthy? I don't know if she is. I don't know if she's wealthy or what Sam thinks rich means. I don't know, but I did think that was kind of an interesting thing to say.
It was interesting, not only that he said it, but they left it in, because she doesn't counter. So it kind of leaves the audience with the idea, maybe she is rich, or maybe he's just like, I would have liked her to say something in response, or to see her say something in response, like, I'm not rich.
Yeah.
Now, is she older than him? Has she had more time to save money? Has she had an actual career, that because she's older? Yeah. So to him, maybe she is rich. It all depends. My son, most of his high school friends, he went to a high school that had a lot of lower income children in it. And his friends would come over and they would raid our pantry every time. We had no problem with it, but they just didn't have like snacks at home. And some of them didn't, eat. I mean, they ate, I don't want to make it sound like they're the poorest of the poor or anything, but like they would raid our chocolate chips and eat our chocolate chips because they didn't have snacks like that. And, I never expected, I mean, I worked a government job. I by no means was I rich either. And yet, but here you have these kids coming in from a lower income background. And yeah, to them, this was, oh my God, there's money pouring from the heavens here. There's chocolate chips pouring from the heavens. And so maybe that's the situation with him, where he just sees her and assumes that by his standard, she's rich.
Yeah, maybe it speaks to his age. And I mean, I don't know anything about Sam either, except that he seems to be in sunny, exotic places doing marketing. So
Well,
I don't get the impression that he's like got nothing.
He used all his money from his winnings to go on a vacation. Oh, wait a minute. Never mind.
Sam, well, after that line, Camille, then we see her just walk away. Whether or not that's
right
accurate, we don't know. But she turns and walks off. Sam sort of utters, "Should have banished her." Blake is just sort of speechless the whole time, and also just leaves. And I've written, why is Sam so shocked? I don't know why he's that. Well, because he was so cocksure and
sure. Yeah, he was so sure of himself. Things had gone his way the entire game. Yeah. And it's funny that he said to her, that's a very great attitude to have if you're rich, when he was acting like kind of the rich politician's son.
Yeah.
The stereotypical rich politician's son. Oh, he gets a ticket and the cop rips it up, or he crashes his car and he's drunk driving and they dismiss the case, or he gets caught shoplifting a candy bar, and no, it's the whatever. He has got, now I'm not saying he committed any crimes, don't get me wrong, but he committed game crimes, and he got away with it every single time. And so when it finally came down to the end and he didn't get away with it, he's like, wait, what do you mean I'm being held responsible for my actions? What's going on here?
It's Sam Trump.
Yeah. I did hear that. Yeah. Yeah.
When he leaves, he simply says, "Sheriff out," and we move towards Roger and voiceover, and we're sort of guided through the empty hotel. And Roger invites us to come and try next time. As far as I know, there is no season 3 officially recommissioned or anything like that. I think they're just they've written a script in the hopes that it's going to come back again. And maybe we'll talk about this. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't, which is really shocking to me. But
I mean, it should. It was free at the end. Come on.
Exactly. It would be really cheap to do it again. Yeah. From what I know, the first season didn't do very well in Australia. I don't know if the second season has done much better. I will be devastated if it doesn't come back for season 3, but not surprised. I just don't know if it's picking up enough of an audience in Australia, which is wild because I think it's so entertaining. But anyway, Roger finishes with his final line. He invites people to sort of apply for the next season, I guess, and he says it might just make you rich, or perhaps teach you a valuable lesson. And it ends. Season 2 of the Traitors Australia ends right there. We've spoken so much already, but I've written in capital letters here in my notes, so much to unpack. And
yes, I think we've unpacked a lot.
We have unpacked a lot. So I do have a series of sort of broad questions, but maybe we've covered a lot of it already. But I'm going to sort of ask you what you think about this. My first question: is it fair to have a traitor's dilemma at all? Should the season not just end with, "Hooray, traitors, you've made it to the end, you've won"? Why did he then make the traitors fight over what's left?
Because they're traitors. I mean, I really do think it emphasizes the backstabby, situation here. They are traitors, and they're going to turn on each other. And so this one part, you have to be able to either turn that off or turn on each other sooner.
Yeah.
And we've discussed, we've spent the last, I don't know how long now, talking about, in part, what these traders could have done differently to win. It is strange, and I don't want to take credit for this because I saw someone else say it on Twitter, that, I'm here for a game show where you could end up winning no money at the end.
Yeah.
In theory, shows like The Mole, The Mole could have taken away all the money at the end, but in every situation, The Mole started to feel bad for them and let them win some money.
Yeah.
And that was probably also production telling them, we got to give them some money. But yeah, to come away after all that with no money, it could happen on other game shows. It's very unlikely. You could leave Jeopardy with only like $1,000 or something like that if everybody blows the final question. But yeah, for there to be $0 is absolutely hysterical, in my opinion. And I think it just emphasizes the traitorous nature of it. And if they had been better gamers, they could have thought this through in advance.
Yeah. My next question is a very sort of devil's advocate question. I'm just sort of going to pose maybe like an ethical question.
Mm-hmm.
And I already know what you're going to say, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Is there an argument for what Camille did as being wrong? Because could you argue, right? Camille says, I had to write Steele because I knew exactly what Sam and Blake were going to do. Mm-hmm. So she and we really knew that. We certainly knew Sam was going to do that. It was so obvious they were going to steal. Does that then mean that actually all the power lay with Camille? So Camille had the power over whether these two young guys take home $100,000 or not, and she chose to not let them. Could you argue that's a bad thing? That that through gritted teeth, she could have just written share, knowing what it meant, but just going, fine, just take the money. Is it when the alternative was that no one gets anything? Could she just have said, oh, for God's sake, just take it? I know what you're going to do, just take it.
In some ways, that kind of happened on the US version at the very end, with one of the traders being, kind of giving up.
Yeah.
But by that point, that trader had also been backed into a corner and was going to lose anyway. So it didn't matter. And that trader also happened to be truly independently wealthy. Like the winnings would have been what he finds in his couch cushions. So, so is there an argument that she should have done this? The only reason I can see for her doing it is if they had a moment alone in the closet with no cameras around, and she said, okay, look here, I know you guys are going to steal. I'm going to share, but then I need you each to cut me $20,000 checks or $30,000 checks when we get out of here. We won't tell production. You just need to do it, and you guys will be declared the winners. Now, is that unethical? Yeah, absolutely. Is that against the game? Yeah. It happens in poker tournaments.
Yeah.
There are poker tournaments that end that way. It's like, I just want to make sure I get some money. Now, poker tournaments also don't end with nobody getting any money. Well, actually, I've heard of some, but those people also, the people running those kind of got in trouble. But it's a situation where she had to take the chance that Blake might put share.
I guess, yeah.
Even if it was a 5% chance, it was worth it.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Sam and Blake, it was fully within Sam and Blake's power to avoid this happening. They are to blame. I know that Sam blamed her. They are to blame because they recruited her at such a late time and they allowed her to stick around to that point.
Yeah.
And not to repeat myself, but Sam had such a godlike vision of his powers that he thought he could convince her. And this was his comeuppance.
I also like to think that if they had made this sort of secret deal when the cameras aren't rolling, look, I'll say share. You guys send me some money. We could cut to 6 months later. Blake's sent over his money.
Yeah.
Camille's patiently waiting. Any day now, Sam's going to send me that money. He promised he would. You still wouldn't trust him as far as you could throw him. And Sam's off jetting around the world.
Yeah.
Another question I sort of thought about here was when Sam has this line about, oh, that's so something a rich person would say. Now, Camille wasn't one of the celebrities involved.
Mm-hmm.
How would it have felt different if one of the, and I don't know how wealthy even the celebrities are, but
right.
Let's take Luke. And you're familiar with Luke from Australian Survivor, and he's been in Big Brother, is that right?
I do believe he was on a Celebrity Big Brother there too, something like that. I haven't seen that.
Yeah,
I've seen his Survivor seasons.
And I don't know anything about Luke, but imagine Luke had $1 million in the bank. Would we feel differently if Luke had made it to the end? You mentioned the US Traitors finale. What if we had a scenario like that? Would it make us feel differently about Sam, that someone we know? It's just the general question of, is it fair that celebrities are taking part in these shows alongside people who don't really have wealth?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that Luke has $1 million. I know that at one point when Luke lost one of the seasons of Survivor, a GoFundMe was set up for him to reach the level of the prize. And my understanding is once it got to above that level, he donated the rest.
Okay.
Because he has his kids need some special attention, stuff like that. So, but. Yeah, I mean, and obviously I've never seen his bank account, as far as you know. But yeah, if it had been, I mean, this was something we brought up on, on the U.S. reunion when the very rich traitor who got knocked out was joining the complaints that Cirie hadn't shared, or at least he wasn't saying anything. Other people were saying, oh, oops, sorry, spoiler, Cirie wins. If you didn't know that by now, sorry. And they were like, oh, she should have shared the money. No, she shouldn't have. She had her own family to take care of. You want to talk to anyone about sharing? Talk to Ari, the millionaire, the multimillionaire over there, And so, yeah, if it were a situation like that, let's say that Ari was transported over to this position there, that would, I think, have been looked upon differently. Like, really, you've got hundreds of millions of dollars and you refuse to give these two kids, $100,000 each.
Yeah, that
I think might have been looked at differently. I don't know what these celebrities had. They didn't seem to be that same level. Or at least to my knowledge.
Yeah.
But yes, I mean, there is that issue of having celebrities and non-celebrities on the same show. We talked about it before, the way Cirie just led people by the nose, and some of the other celebrities did too. The same question comes up in New Zealand. I won't say more than that. It actually works a little differently on New Zealand, amusingly enough, and part of that's because it's New Zealand and it's small and they all know each other. Yeah, I really do think that they shouldn't do these, but then TV production, they want the ratings. They wanted to be able to say, hey, look, Luke's back. Yeah. And they wanted to, be able to say some of these other people as well. So next time they'll cast Annabelle and they'll say, hey, look, Annabelle's back. We should be so lucky.
We've talked throughout this episode about how the faithful in this season really did a poor job subjectively. Were they really the worst group of faithful ever? Or
yes.
Okay, next
I'm sorry, was there more to that question? Yeah.
The end of the question was simply, or is it a near impossible game. Like, is it so difficult to really play this and figure out who traitors are that there's not? How bad were the faithful really? Were they just playing against really difficult odds?
I mean, it is a difficult game, but how many times do you need people to point out what Sam has done?
Well, yeah.
And then for those people to be knocked out. I mean, how many times did it take for Liam to finally recognize it? And then Sarah basically never did, So, yeah, as soon as any one of them had a light bulb, they were gone because in their eyes, Sam was untouchable. And it was just, yes, they were that bad. And it's, they you need to watch. You need to watch the show. You need to know what you're getting into. If this were season 1, I would have a little bit more leeway, but it's not. It was season 2, and there was British and there was US. I mean, not to mention the non-English versions, but let's just even sticking to the English versions. There's no excuse for them to not have a clue how to play this game. There's podcasts to listen to.
Exactly. Annabelle listens.
Yes.
You've kind of already, I think, answered this next question. I wanted to ask, does the series end up feeling like a waste of time because no one won anything?
I don't think so. Because we got to watch along the way as what happened. We got our entertainment value out of it, certainly.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, it certainly from Sam and Blake's perspective, it feels like a waste.
Yeah.
They literally said that, Sam especially, I put in all this work and I got nothing. Yeah, you did. And you could have been voted out in, banished in like the second episode and gotten nothing too. So, I don't think it was a waste. I think, hopefully it's incentive for them to make a third season.
Yeah. And I think my final question that you've sort of theorized about already as well. I wanted to ask, how would this season have ended had Sam been banished somewhere between episodes 6 and 8? If everyone had just listened to Annabelle and Luke and got him out at most 2 weeks later, what do you think would have then happened at the end?
So it would have been after Annabelle and Luke were gone.
Yeah.
But before Camille had been recruited?
Let's go with that scenario, yeah. Before Camille's recruited.
Ooh. So then Blake would have to have recruited someone.
Yeah.
I don't know that he would have recruited Camille because he wasn't too hip on the idea when it happened. I think he would have recruited someone.
I think he may have recruited Keith. Yeah, he and Keith seemed to be really good pals. Until they
that's
on
right.
Another.
Well, and Keith was so clueless too. And so if he recruited Keith, I think because once they saw that Sam was a traitor, remember she and Luke were naming both of them.
Yeah.
So if they saw that she was right about Sam, it would have been natural to turn on Blake next. And then, so then I think they would have actually, maybe I'm probably overestimating these people, but they would have turned on Blake next. And then Tech could have left Keith as the sole traitor. So either Keith ends up winning or the faithful end up winning.
Yeah.
But then Keith would have probably had to recruit someone too. And I don't know who he would have recruited. So it could have been whoever Keith recruited that ends up winning. It's so hard to say because of all those variables. But I definitely think that Blake would have flamed out pretty quickly after.
Yeah. I said that was my final question, but actually I do have another question. And this question has a correct answer, so you have to be careful. You've already explained that you felt like Sam did not deserve to win. Actually, he played badly. He just got away with it because of Bad Faithful. And I think you also think Camille probably didn't really deserve to win either because she didn't take opportunities to banish Sam. Therefore, who deserved to win this season?
Well, I think that the deserving people won.
I see. And that is no one.
Yes. Yes. I think that, I think I said it at the beginning. As I was watching, I was like, the faithful don't deserve to win. The traitors don't deserve to win. Nobody deserves to win, but someone's going to have to. And it turned out I was right. Nobody did.
Yeah.
I mean, if this were a scripted movie or TV show, we would have said it was terribly written. I mean, you're a writer.
Yeah.
If you had written this as a book, I would have, because I used to review books too. I used to review books for the paper and for websites and the like. I would have given this back to you and said, rewrite it. It is terribly written. Nobody is believable. They are all clueless. Every time this is a murder mystery. Every time someone accuses the murderer of being the murderer, they get eliminated and no one picks up on it. There's no way that could happen in real life.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah. And if this was fiction and I was writing it and I was creating a narrative arc, it all would have changed after the banishment of Annabelle. That should have been the turning point. That should have been the moment of realization.
Yes.
And the downfall of Sam should have played out immediately after that. And the faithfuls then turn it all around and they work their way to victory. And they just refused to win again and again. They just refused to do the obvious thing. I thought by the way, you failed. You got the question wrong. The correct answer was Annabelle.
Well, yes, obviously. I mean, but unfortunately, you failed too, because you said if you had written it as fiction that they would have realized it after Annabelle was eliminated. But no.
Well, yeah, no.
My actual I had said originally that a prediction I had made on another podcast was that Camille would win. My actual prediction was that Annabelle would be resurrected in the game and would come back and win. That would have been a twist. She would have just shown up and poof, she would have won the game. And that's how I would have written it as, fiction as well. But yeah, so you're right. That is the proper answer. Would I have been upset with Camille winning? No. I think that it is a flaw in the game mechanics that she had a chance to win at that late stage. But I mentioned earlier, that is the best position to be in. The late recruited traitor is, I think, one of the best positions to be in. And she almost showed why. But then, like we discussed, she didn't take full advantage of it.
Yeah. I lied again. I do have another question. I promise this is the last question.
Okay, there's your lie. There's your lie. I got it.
They weren't deliberate lies. I just have more to say. I just an overall, in a nutshell, I've been surprised by some of the things that you said today. Overall, I still loved the season. I found it incredibly frustrating.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, I was entertained. I was totally entertained and I was desperate to see the next episode every time because Sam was so divisive and difficult. That made me want to watch it even more. So actually and I thought the finale was really exciting with a great, final moment. So my overall opinion is I want to recommend this to people and I'm telling people, Australian season 2, it's amazing. You have to watch. You're not going to believe it. You're not going to believe the shit these people do. What's your sort of nutshell overall opinion on the season as a whole?
I mean, yes, very frustrating is a good, summary of it. But also I have wanted to talk about it. I've wanted to talk about it on Twitter. I've wanted to talk about it on podcast. It's like waiting for this episode has been killing me here. It's like, I want to talk about it somewhere. So, I mean, that's a good sign. But mostly I wanted to talk about it so I could yell, the faithful are so dumb, Uh, and I mean, I mostly watch reality TV for strategy. And the strategy was just so bad. So bad. But yes, entertainment wise, it was hysterical to watch this. And that's kind of why I was amused at the very end when they all got nothing. Because you all deserve nothing. You know what you get? You get nothing. Because you all were bad. And so there you go. Go to your rooms.
David's final word, go to your rooms. Now, we are almost at an end. It's been a long discussion. Before we finish our game, we've been trying to lie to one another in the Trade Our Traitor. David, tell us a little bit about where we can find you and where we can hear more from you, all about reality TV.
So you mentioned earlier, I'm doing a weekly podcast on US Big Brother. It's called Why Blank Lost. And it talks about, well, pretty much what the name says, why each person lost. Someone had suggested that I do that for this episode. And I think you'll just, if you listen to all like 2 hours at this point now, you will understand why they lost. They all played terribly. And so I have a set of rules that I have for playing in these different games. And, so I go through with, a player from Big Brother 21, Ovi Kabir. He and I talk about the each thing that the players did right and wrong, and in the end we come to the conclusion of why they lost, and that is on the Rob Has a Podcast network. And then very soon I will be starting double duty because US Survivor starts on September 27th. So I do that with former player Jessica Lewis, who we do the same thing and talk about these rules. And now I've been doing this. I mean, the rules for Survivor, I think I wrote up in 2001, and for Big Brother 2004. So, we modify them as it goes. But I've been doing this for a while, originally online on websites, and then more recently for the last 8 years for Survivor and few years for Big Brother as podcasts. So I'll be, like I said, doing double duty on talking about why people lost. In addition, I post short videos on TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram, where I'm at David Bloomberg TV. And I think that's where you found me. I think you found me on Instagram when I was posting these videos about one of the Traitors series. And mostly right now they're about Big Brother because that's the main thing that's on. I did a few on the Traitors New Zealand, a few on the Traitors Australia, and so you can find those there. And like I said, just go through those, and they're either hopefully funny or hopefully strategically insightful, or sometimes both. And so you can find me there. Again, that's at David Bloomberg TV. And then on Twitter and Blue Sky and Mastodon and Post, I'm at David Bloomberg, mostly on Twitter because that's still where most of the reality TV people are. I'm also on Threads. I have to use at David Bloomberg TV there because it's linked to Instagram. So they ruined my whole setup there. I've actually, Big Brother has been good to me with gaining some new followers / subscribers. I recently passed 5,000 on both TikTok and Twitter, over 2,000 on YouTube, but I still have under 1,000 on Instagram. So I need to pump that up more.
Okay, excellent. And there's a bit of crossover between Traitors and Big Brother because, again, spoilers, but we've already given spoilers. So, okay. Traitors star Cerie is on Big Brother. How is she doing at this point?
She is doing well. It's definitely a different game for her. I mean, they've already passed the point where she'd be done with Survivor at this, at this time, and she still has another 2.5 months left or 2 months left. It's 100 days. It's 100-day Big Brother.
Jeez,
well, because the U.S. writers and actors strike, they need to fill time. And so they started it late.
Oh my goodness.
And the CBS network here is basically filled with reality shows. They have Big Brother on 3 times a night, Survivor and The Amazing Race. They bumped up to 90 minutes each. So that takes up the whole Wednesday night block. And then they have a new show called Buddy Games, which I think was supposed to be like a summer filler, but they ended up putting that into fall TV. And then they've got some game shows and stuff. They're just filling it all with non-scripted TV.
Yeah.
Although I did see, and I don't know if this is on CBS too, I did see the show NCIS, which started in the US. I guess there's a version in Australia, because I saw a promo for the NCIS universe is expanding. Watch NCIS Australia. And at first I thought, wow, they have a scripted show. And then I realized, oh, it's probably a version that was airing in Australia and they bought the rights to it so they could show it when the strikes are still
Fill up space, yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't know how I got to that from Serene, but yeah, she is doing well. Her son is also secretly in the house, or rather, they know who she is. They don't know who her son is.
Yes.
Originally, everybody was thinking, oh, her son is this huge advantage for her. But lately, it has shifted to thinking, no, they put her son in there as a disadvantage to her because she has to keep cleaning up his messes. He thinks he's the greatest player because he shares some genes with her, and he's not. He actually reminds me a little bit of Sam. Yeah. Because even, just this past week, he's been going around acting like he's the smartest. He knows everything. And he also reminds me of some of the faithful because he ignores all contrary evidence. So yeah, it's interesting with that situation. Of course, everybody knows to one extent or another who Suri is, but they don't know her son. Only a couple people know who her son is. One saw it right away and realized it. One, he stupidly told.
Okay. Excellent. I saw a clip of them sort of the show beginning, and someone instantly somehow knew that it was. Someone said, "Is that your mom?" or something like that. So
yeah, because he had been on the family visit on Survivor. Now you don't watch Survivor. Yeah, we're going to get you watching Survivor. We're absolutely going.
Well, UK Survivor is on the way.
Yes. Yeah, we're going to get you watching that. But there was a family visit pre-COVID. They had family visits. He visited his mom. So he actually was on the show, on Survivor. So if you're a truly dedicated viewer,
you recognize him.
Right, and this person did.
Oh, wow. Okay. David, the time has come for us to try and rat one another out because we've been playing the Trade Our Traitor. We've been trying to lie to one another. I'm pretty sure last time we played this, we both fooled the other. I think we didn't catch each other out. Let's see if we can keep that up. I lied to you. Did you lie to me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't remember what I lied about. No, I do remember. I have a few guesses. I'm going to guess yours first.
Okay.
Written a few notes down, got some options. I'm going to talk you through which ones I'm eliminating.
Okay.
You mentioned being on different podcasts a few times, and I wondered if maybe some of those were a lie, but I'm not going to go with that. You mentioned that an air date of it must be New Survivor. You said something begins on September 27th, and I thought maybe that's a lie. It's the wrong date. Then you mentioned Big Brother's going on for another 2 months, and I thought that's a lie. But now I think, no, that probably is true because you only said that in response to a question that I asked on the spur of the, so I thought, no, he wouldn't have prepared that in advance. He didn't know I was going to ask about that, unless you made it up on the spur of the moment because you realized that you'd forgotten to tell me a lie. The one I'm going to go with is this was 2 hours ago now. We were talking about lie detectors, and you mentioned, I know there's a TV show called Claim to Fame, and you talked about that briefly, and you said, oh, on Claim to Fame, they use a lie detector. And you said something about season 2, and I thought, I didn't know there was this. I thought there was only one season of that show. So my guess is that it's something to do with the lie detector on Claim to Fame. Is that a lie?
No, no, that would have been a funny lie to lie about a lie detector. You haven't been following. Apparently, you haven't been following my videos on Instagram very well. I had a lot of videos about season 2 of Claim to Fame.
I haven't seen the season, so I don't want to watch videos about it in case it ruins anything. So,
yes.
Okay, right. I've ruined my record. Then I've lost. David, reveal what you lied about.
I followed your often method of lying because I think that I think you need to modify the rules a little bit, because sometimes, like, I listened to one recently where you said something like, "Oh, I said something happened 24 times, but it was really 26 times," and it's close. I'm like, come on, make it bigger than that. So I said that I have 2,000 subscribers on YouTube, and I actually have like 920 subscribers on YouTube. So that needs to be bumped up to at David Bloomberg TV on YouTube. But yeah, so that's where I went. I followed in the things that you have lied about in the past.
You've used my trick against me. And when you said it, I thought maybe that's a lie. But I didn't write it down, and I just forgot about it. So I wasn't quick enough to take my notes there. So you've fooled me. You've played me at my own game. Now I have a chance to redeem myself, because maybe I've tricked you. Any guesses what I lied about?
I mean, I already gave one guess in a way in the middle of the conversation. The only other thing I think it could be was the thing flying into Roger. I mean, I did not notice that, but I guess it's possible. I would just think they would reshoot that if something flew into Roger. So I thought that could be the lie.
I am telling you right now, something flew into Roger. I swear to God. Watch it again. Something flies into his arm, a bird or something. I'm not kidding. That's real. That is not my lie. And I knew when I said it, you would think it was my lie. But it really happened, and I need to actually get like a screen grab of it. I watched it again. I thought, did I imagine that? And I watched it again, and something hits him. It's like a giant moth or something. It's really weird. My real lie then. Actually, you should have caught me out, because I did the thing that you said I do.
Oh.
Quite early, I was reading through my notes, and I said, "Oh, I'm moving on to a new page. How many pages of notes do I have?" And I said, "Oh, I have 9 pages of notes."
Oh, yes.
I have 8 pages of notes.
Yeah. See, there's another podcast I listen to where they have something at the end called Science or Fiction.
Mm-hmm.
And the podcast is called Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. But at the end, so they have usually three options. And the host gives the other co-hosts this 3 different options. Mm-hmm. And his rule is, if I am off by a number, it will always be at least an order of magnitude. So like if he says, they took an image with a telescope and they saw 1,000 galaxies in this image, and he's lying, it means that they had to have found at least 10,000 galaxies, not 1,001. So, I'm not going to tell you how to change your game, but maybe a little bit more than just that.
Okay. I mean, part of my lie was that I pretended to I had to look at the screen, but I already knew I had 8 pages. I was acting it, but maybe I should introduce a rule that we can't lie about numbers or something like that.
Or it has to be big enough, because that was going to be, I think last time I was on, that was going to also be my lie, but I accidentally said it before we had started the game. I had said something like I watched the show 4 times when I had only watched it twice, or something like that.
Yeah. Maybe next season then I'll introduce some. I'll switch it up. I'll introduce some new way of reinvigorating the game. David, thank you so much. It's been a big long conversation, so I really appreciate the time that you've given. Thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed talking about this
definitely.
season.
Definitely. Like I said, I've been waiting all season for this. I'm like, I'm like, if anybody drops out, you could call me, really.
I've had people send me messages saying, "Is David Bloomberg coming back on for the finale?" And I'm like, "Yes, David will be here." So people enjoy the discussions.
Well, good,
It's
good,
worthwhile. I
good.
will talk to you about more Traitors at some point, I am
Yep.
sure. Or maybe even Survivor UK, which
Ooh, yes.
I'm not gonna cover it on the podcast, but I'm gonna watch it. Will you watch?
I will definitely watch, and I think you might be lying about whether you're going to cover it on the podcast. So even though the game is over, I think you might be lying. We'll see.
We'll see. Until then, David, thank you so much. Bye bye.
Bye.
Hello, faithful Traitor listeners. We made it. What a season. What a deep dive with David. I can't quite. Again, I'll stop. I'm sorry. Okay. I can't quite. I just love the accent. I can't quite believe the show's over. Kind of, in a way. It's a huge cliche, but what a roller coaster truly this season has been. I hope you've enjoyed it as much as I have. I want to take a little moment to give Alan a shout out for his very generous donation to the podcast coffee page. You can find the details for that in the episode description if you want to help out. Alan, I love you dearly. You and Annabelle are both my new besties. I promised that that's what would happen. Speaking of Annabelle, if you haven't already, you can listen to our interview special episode. It's available now. And that leads me on to what's in store. Yes, season 2 of the Traitors Australia may be over, but the podcast season lives on. I still have contestants to interview. Over the next few weeks, I'm hoping to speak to some of the big competitors, faithful and traitors from this incredible season. So keep checking out the podcast's social media and making sure you're subscribed to the pod on your platform of choice so that you can get automatic downloads and little notifications as soon as new episodes appear. You can follow the podcast on Instagram at the Traidar Podcast or on X at the Traidar Pod, and you can also email me at thetraidarpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you again for listening into this season. I have loved recapping the episodes, and I've had so many sweet DMs and emails from you guys, and I appreciate each of them so much. They're lovely morale boosts, so it really keeps me going. The next time you hear from me then will probably be when I am speaking to an Aussie contestant. If you have burning questions, yes, the accents come back. If you have burning questions for any of them, send them my way. Until then, stay faithful.